Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, my name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. We all need therapy from time to time. We deserve therapy. Let's watch.
Possibly that she's never heard this before, because Kody's a blabbermouth and he can't keep anything secret. This whole confused thing is something that happens a lot, and I don't know. I don't know if it's for real or if she's just pretending that she's never heard anything before, but Kody leaks like a sieve, so I don't. At the end of the day, I think I'd rather be with my kids.
Well, that's what Christine's decision was,
No,
too.
I'm just telling you, look, you're getting upset.
Right there. That one, the fact that he would respond that way, he should say, well, yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense because I put you in that position and I'm sorry, or what, something. But then when he reacts that way, Mary and Janelle and Robin, none of them say, hold on, what did you just say? What's your attitude? Janelle isn't choosing the kids over you. You forced Janelle into a situation where she either had to completely reject her own children, meaning, in a practical way, like around Christmas, not spend Christmas with her own children that were all getting together, and instead spend Christmas with you and Robin and her kids at your house. That's the decision that you forced her into. And, big surprise, she chose to hang out with her kids, not because she's rejecting you, but because you gave her basically no other choice. The only choice that she had was either to be a really crappy mom and hang out with you, or be a good human being and a good mom and hang out. Don't you want the mother of your children? Your children.
Sit with me,
No,
Ben.
I'm not. I'm just saying that's where Christine was. There's been a bit of a civil war, the whole family in a way. And I'm looking at Janelle wondering whose side she's on.
Are you saying Garrison and Gabe can't be around?
I would just be repeating myself. So it's not a civil war. You're the only one at war, and there's no sides. You're looking for an excuse. It looks conscious to me that he is actively waking up in the morning and saying, okay, how do I make it so that I can ham-fistedly try to create the narrative for the audience that I'm being rejected and I'm like this harmed individual, or at the very least that me and Janelle are just aren't really good for each other, and Janelle leaves me and it's all Janelle's fault for the most part, and that sort of thing. It literally looks like that's what he's doing. It's complete hypothesizing for me. I have no direct data on that, but when I hypothesize that, it makes everything make sense.
Period? Or are you looking for like real resolution where there's conversation on both sides?
Well, I think
That's a great question. That's actually a really good question. Robin's like, what? And this is a question that therapists will, particularly family therapists, will ask very frequently, because people tend to talk in these general, amorphous, what word do I put to it? Abstract ways of just, like loyalty and civil war. And it's like, okay, well, what would it look like if it wasn't that? What exactly are you looking for? And I find, and all therapists that ask these kind of questions will find that people sometimes have no idea. They just have a general idea of what they want, but there's no practical pathway to it because they don't even know what that looks like. And once they start to define it, one, it communicates to the other party like what they're actually asking for. And sometimes it's like, well, is that all you're asking? Well, then fine, I can do that. Or the individual making the demand or the request will realize as they're talking that it's ridiculous of what they want, or they will be revealed for actually not having an outcome that they're looking for because he's just trying to push someone out.
it's on.
Are you saying Garrison and Gabe can't be around?
want-
Period? Or are you looking for like real resolution where there's conversation on both sides?
Well, I think we need resolution.
Right.
I'm just like, what?
what does that mean? And, the alternative, a better question Robin could have asked is, okay, what is the pathway? And I'm guessing he would have no answer to that. One, because he doesn't know, because he doesn't have one. And two, he isn't interested in a pathway. I don't think he's interested in seeing any positive outcome from this whole thing other than Janelle that goes away. And I guess his kids.
Sorry. I don't even recognize this family or whatever. I don't know. Something has really changed for me.
Yeah. I mean, one, I think Janelle is starting to change her narrative about the whole thing, family, her marriage, Kody. And it's starting to look like something she doesn't want to be involved in, maybe. I don't know. But this is another tick in the column that Kody was very different before. And I assume everyone or many people, including maybe them, are assuming that he was always a jerk face and he was just hiding it. And that's possible. But I suspect that it is different than that, and that everyone was, it was before Robin entered. Well, actually, I don't know. Because on one hand, I was going to say that it was a well-oiled machine, their family, the 4 adults and all the kids, because a lot of good things were happening and there seemed to be a lot of functional aspects. But then when you hear from the sister wives, it sounds like they all hated each other and conflicted when they first joined the family. So, but at some point they reached some sort of homeostasis and a way to get along well enough anyway, and help each other and not be at each other's throats. But sorry, I have allergies all the time. But I suspect, and there's no way to know this question, but if I were God or something and had the ability to know definitively the truth and conceptualize it, I'm guessing that he had the normal amount of jerk faceness that other people would have, and something hit a breaking point in 2019 or 2020 or somewhere around there, and he downward spiraled, and he's still spiraling.
I want us to work this out.
There's a strong pull to just run away and do the easy thing.
The other thing I'll just throw out there, because I just thought, because who knows, and maybe y'all know, that he might have changed something about his biology, meaning that there was maybe he has some condition that he needs to take a medication for, or due to age, there can be shifts in hormones or whatnot, and that might have an effect. Because I've said this before, but it seems like there's no way to know this, but there's a possibility that something led either biologically and or the environment or his history or something resulted in him becoming depressed. There's a lot of signs that he's depressed, that he suffers from major depressive disorder. Depression in people, and particularly men, particularly traditional gender men, will, when they're depressed, look like him. Irritable, lots of anger and rejection. Because, with depression, one of the hallmarks is that you no longer enjoy the things that you used to enjoy. And the way that people often, in a simple way, interpret that symptom is that, oh, you used to like needlepoint and now you don't like it anymore. And that's true. But it goes way deeper and more systemic than that. Like, you could enjoy your wives and your family and your own children before you're depressed, and then once you are depressed, you actually don't enjoy your children. You don't enjoy relationships. You don't enjoy people. You don't want to be with anybody. You are only more irritated and more angry and more rageful when you're around the people that you love. Not only because you no longer enjoy, because the circuitry in the brain, the chemistry is such that physically, neurologically, it's hard or impossible to experience any enjoyment just across the board. So that's why you don't enjoy the things that you usually enjoy. And you also are irritable and have a hard time regulating and are also not getting any of your attachment needs met because they're deep down in there because you're pushing everyone away, and you're just spiraling and without any relief, either through psychiatry or through therapy or through circumstances changing or self-awareness, then it's just going to cascade. And that's what it's like for people that come down with major depression, is things cascade. They push people away. They alienate people either subtly or not so subtly. And then they're alone and in conflict and being rejected, which gives them even more reason to be depressed and more reason to be irritable and more reason to look for narratives that explain everything, maybe like everyone's against me, that kind of stuff. And it just gets worse and worse. And it's really hard to pull out of, even when you have awareness and a psychiatrist and a therapist. Believe me, there's a thing called treatment-resistant depression, or just somewhat treatment-resistant depression, which is really hard to do. I haven't heard any confirmation of that. It's total speculation, but if that were the case, it would also explain a lot of things.
There should be one. There should be one.
Robin's the only good communicator in this whole family. I'm communicator. There's a term they use for Robin. It's called circling the donkey. It's where the donkey is roped to the grinder and it's grinding the mill, and that donkey just goes around and round and around and around because Robin gets to the bottom of the problem. It's an unfair term for her, but the fact is it's a compliment.
I've never heard of that term, circling the donkey. I mean, it sounds like the metaphor is there's a donkey and then someone is circling it, but he described the metaphor of the donkey that is driving in a circular manner the grinding stone. So is the idiom that you are a circling donkey? I don't know. So is that an accurate, or is that a possibly accurate metaphor or idiom or label for Robin? Yeah, I mean, I've observed that. Everyone in this family has their strengths, which is common. Their strengths are not very noticeable at this point. I guess Janelle's are in this moment. But back when things were going well, Christine was the truth teller. Truth teller is a strong word because it's her truth, which could, I'm guessing, sometimes, maybe a lot of time, be biased. But she was the one that would, Janelle certainly wasn't giving a lot of pushback, and certainly Mary wasn't. So Christine was the one that would be more vocal about any sort of complaint on any level, And she was more spontaneous. She was more comfortable. She probably was raised in a way that allowed for her as a child to be spontaneous. It's actually one of the core needs that I will track in people, that all children need to feel safe to be spontaneous. Not to be violent with their siblings or to run out into traffic. There's a limit to spontaneity that children should be allowed to do. But there are families that are overtly abusive that will cause children to feel like they can't be spontaneous. But there's also subtle ways of parenting children that are not abusive that also will stifle spontaneity. So we have a need for spontaneity, a need for authenticity, and more fundamentally, a need to feel safe to be ourselves, within reason. We're not. We all have to have limits on, and that's another need that we have. We need to feel. We have a need, particularly when we're young, but really throughout our lives, to have a consistent boundary to our behavior, to know the limits. And there's a tension between that, right? The freedom to be spontaneous and the responsibility to have limits on our behavior. So all children have those related needs. And so I think that for her, Christine, she was raised in a way that allowed for that need to be met. And so she was more spontaneous. Mary seems to be the opposite of that, where she was raised in a way that was not allowed to be spontaneous, and even to the point where I think Mary wasn't allowed to even figure out who she was, how what her own thoughts were I can't know that, of course, but she has the classic profile of someone, particularly when she was going through the thing with Mariah. It was just like, wow, the hesitancy and the lack of any connection with any foundation for her. Anyway, so, and I'm speculating based on an edit of a reality TV show, so, take it with a grain of salt. But so the strength that Mary provided was to, hearing the back channel stuff from the sister wives, it changes things a lot. But I think she was, in a sense, kind of like the head lady in the house. And she was also the crisis management person when it came to the children. Janelle and Christine would both say, from my memory anyway, in the early seasons, that Mary was good with the kids when they were, when really bad things started to happen. Mary was the most level-headed, and she would come in and she'd be very firm. So she was, in a way, kind of like the matriarch in a way, and that was her strength. And then with Janelle, and of course, there's a lot of other roles that they would have. Like Janelle was the accountant, right? Just in terms of those practical things, but also Janelle, in terms of the family functioning, I think she was the physical intimacy person with Kody. They've always had that apparently, and still do, according to Janelle, the way she's talking about it. And so I think for Kody and Janelle, they were the ones that held the sexual needs, at least for Kody and Janelle. But also Janelle was the one that would stabilize things. She's very stable, level-headed. She doesn't have a lot of needs. She doesn't, not only does she not talk about needs, but it seems like she doesn't really have a lot of complicated needs. She seems very mellow, and that that's a role. You need someone like that, especially in a group like that. When Robin entered, her strength was that I didn't realize just how bad everyone else was at this until Robin entered the family, that Robin is, I guess kind of like a therapist, or at least in that direction. I wouldn't say that she's particularly good at it. I'm not saying she's terrible, but she's way better than the rest. Like, she's the only one in these adult conversations that at least tries to facilitate between two other people. The other sister wives, seemingly, they might defend each other, maybe, but they definitely don't say like, like Janelle doesn't go to Christine and Kody and say, well, she would never try to help them communicate. Robin has done that in the edit many times and is doing that here. You could argue that she's not doing it particularly well, but at least she's trying, because nobody is even trying to. Even the two parties aren't trying to communicate with each other. And Robin is, and I would say that a lot of times she is succeeding. There was that one moment where, was it after Mariah came out, that they had a sit down with Mary, because, was it that one? I can't remember what it was, but Robin was trying to facilitate a conversation between Kody and Mary, and Kody and Mary were not going to talk about it, or if they were, it wasn't going to go very well. And Robin, without any concern for her, she wasn't inserting herself. She was just like, you could argue she's inserting herself triangulation-wise, but she didn't seem to have an agenda other than to try to help them work it out, and it seemed to kind of work. And both of them, when they first started talking, I remember they Kody was like, okay, we're going to sit in the living room and we're going to talk about this. And then Mary's sitting down. She's like, I don't want to sit in the living room. And Cody's like, well, why not? And Mary's like, okay, fine. I guess I'll sit in the living room. I have this wrong, but this is my memory. And Cody's like, okay, fine. Let's keep talking in the living room. And Rob was like, no, Mary, where else would you like to talk? Is there Kody? We can talk anywhere. Let's work this out. And then they moved to the kitchen island, and that seemed to help Mary. And without Robin there, I don't know what they might not have ever got past that one issue. Anyway, so my whole thing is that Kody is saying that she's good at communication. I don't know if, at the very least, her strength and her role in the family is to attempt to try to work things out. Now, can Robin be unreasonable? Yes. In the, I don't know how long ago it was, that adult meeting where Robin says to Christine, "That's a lie." And then Robin basically semi-hallucinated something that Christine said that she didn't say. And, that's not, quote unquote, good communication, and certainly not helpful or constructive. So, but it also makes me wonder if Mary and the others were to, because often Mary and Janelle don't say anything, which is fine. I think I would probably be that way, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because under those, if I'm not in a professional role and there's those kind of things happening and I'm not directly involved in the conflict, I will almost pathologically just become super reserved or just like try to disappear, which isn't good. But Mary and Janelle will do that. And but if they didn't, I can't imagine them doing any better than Robin is when she's at least trying to help. Anyway. All right, well, let's adjourn there. If you want me to read one of your emails on the podcast, the best way is to, first you have to email through the website. That's an automatic thing. But also if you are a patron or YouTube member or both, or are an upper tier member or patron, then that's how things get prioritized. In the past, I used to be able to read every email on the air because I would only get one email every couple months. This was like 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And I like that. I feel like if someone's going to spend the time to email me, then I feel like it's only right that I respond and, read it on the air. I can't do that anymore, unfortunately, which bums me out. So the way that we've decided to prioritize, Stacy gets the emails and she puts it in this Google Doc, and she will prioritize it based on if people are upper tier, and then if they're just regular patrons or YouTube members, and then from there. And, sometimes I will absolutely be able to get to an email from a non-member, non-patron, because it's a good question, or I feel bad, or it has to do with another email that I'm answering, or it has to do with something I'm passionate about, or whatever, So I just thought I would say that. Also, if you want me to see and read and respond to your comment, my dogs are barking, then YouTube members, I go to the comments page and I sort by members first, and I try to read and respond to all those. And then if I have time, then I go on to non-members. So, just another thing to think about. And if you are a member or not a member, we have this little icon. So you'll see people with corns or little sprouts. And so the idea is that the first month you're a seed, this like little brown seed. And then the first month you have a sprout with one leaf, and then there's 2 months, and then there's 6 months, and then there's full corn after a year. And then after 2 years, which is coming up, then you would have 2 corns, and so on. So, yeah, I like those little icons. I contracted with I had the idea, and then I hired a designer, to make them, and I'm really happy with them. Anyway, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.